Hello friends, subscribers and new viewers of this channel. After half a day of struggle, I was able to install and successfully run FLUX1 model in Python on my local computer running Windows. FLUX1 schnell is a model that is used to generate images from text descriptions. I tested FLUX1 schnell on my NVIDIA 3090 GPU with 24GB RAM. The results are truly amazing, and you can see one of the generated images over here. In this tutorial, I will explain how to correctly install and run FLUX1 schnell in Windows and Python. Prepare yourself, the installation process might take some time, and after that I will explain how to write this code that will run FLUX1 schnell. You can see how simple it is. For those of you who are not familiar with this whole concept, FLUX1 schnell is a rectified flow transformer that's used to generate images from text descriptions. The rectified flow transformer has around 12 billion parameters, and this is huge. And here's a real-time demonstration of this amazing model. So over here, you can simply specify the description of the desired image. So to generate the image that I just shown, I said the following: ancient Greek soldier with a sword and a shield, then behind there are horses, in the background there is a mountain with snow. Next to the soldier, let's write this. There is, let me just type it in the next line. Next to the soldier, there is another soldier whose hair is blonde. Okay, so let's see what will happen right now. Now I will even change the image. And you can even put the whole paragraph over here. I will just put this in a whole line, and then let's see how to run this. So I will simply run my Python file, and let's see in real time how long will it take for this image to be generated. Right now we generated, or better to say loaded, the model over here, and you can see the process of generating the image. And this is in real time. Now we will wait over here, and let's see how long does it take. Now, I have seen over here in this prompt, that is in this text prompt, people putting the whole paragraphs, even the complete page of text. And you can even put more details here, such that you can even specify the color of eyes, you can specify the color of the shield, you can do all sorts of things. And you can see this is done in real time. I'm having a machine with 48GB of RAM, and this really matters. And you can see over here, behind him, there is a soldier. And of course there is some artifact over here that's being created. This doesn't look exactly like a sword, and he's not holding a sword. However, this can be improved by doing more iteration. However, this is still amazing. You can see how realistic these images are actually. This is insane. And actually the first image had a more realistic face than this one. However, you can even improve that. Okay, so let's start with the tutorial. Those of you who are my subscribers and my followers know very well that I like to create thorough tutorials where I explain thoroughly every step. This might take some initial time to watch the video, however, in the long run, I will save your time. Consequently, the first step is always to understand the software and hardware prerequisites. Well, the official web page states that the FLUX1 schnell can be run locally. However, they don't specify the required GPU memory requirements and other specs. Or if they did, we could not find the specs. If you just blindly run the script on the official Hugging Face website, you will see that the script will not run unless GPU has 60GB of VRAM memory. However, you can actually run FLUX1 schnell on GPUs with less memory by just adding a single line of code. We have tested FLUX1 schnell on an NVIDIA 3090 with 24GB of VRAM memory, and it takes around 30 to 60 seconds to generate an image, as you have seen at the beginning of this video tutorial. You can decrease this time by optimizing the code. More about this in our future video tutorials. To summarize, you will need a relatively modest GPU to run FLUX1 schnell. In the comment section below, you can share with us your experiences running FLUX1 schnell on different GPUs. So I have a 2-year-old desktop computer running Windows 10 with actually 48 gigabyte of RAM memory. And here's my GPU. It's NVIDIA 3090, and the most important thing is this VRAM memory. So let's start with software prerequisites. Most likely, you need the NVIDIA CUDA toolkit installed before you install the library. This is very important. We are not 100% sure about this since we have NVIDIA CUDA toolkit on our system. That is, we did not test the installation without NVIDIA CUDA toolkit. Install it just in case. Anyway, you will need it for some other machine learning libraries and to compile some other code. We created a separate video tutorial on how to properly install NVIDIA CUDA toolkit in Windows. So make sure the following. So when you click over here and you search for the environment, that is edit the system environment variables, if you click here, you should see CUDA home and you should see the folder of your CUDA GPU computing toolkit installation. Another thing that you need to have is the CUDA path and these two variables. They will be automatically installed with the installation of CUDA, however you will need to add this. So make sure that you have CUDA and install it just in case. Now, here is a very important thing. A lot of people don't know this. In order to properly run PyTorch in a Python virtual environment, you need to install the Microsoft Visual Studio compilers. If you don't do that, then you might get different DLL errors when importing PyTorch. So you need to go to this website, and over here you need to download Visual Studio C++, and you can choose the Community Edition. The Community Edition is free. This will install Visual Studio C++ together with all the compilers. Notice that this is actually not VS Code. VS Code is the editor and VS Code doesn't include compilers. So make sure that you have that, otherwise you will have problems running PyTorch in a virtual environment. Then, another important thing that you will need to have, I think, around 50 to 100 gigabyte of free space on your local disk in order to run FLUX1 schnell. And this is very important. This is mainly because the model files have to be downloaded from the online remote repository and they're huge. However, I'm not 100% sure are all these files being actually used by the model, and I'm going to investigate that in the future video tutorials. Okay, so let's immediately start. The first step is actually to download the model files. For that purpose, go to this website, huggingface.co, and over here search for FLUX1 and find FLUX1 schnell. And this is the main web page of FLUX1 schnell. Shout out to Black Forest Labs, they did an amazing work. So this is the company that developed this amazing software, and shout out to them because they enabled a free version of this software. Okay, now files are given over here. What is the issue? You cannot download these files manually. I mean, you can try, you can just click here, click here, click here, click here, click here. Then you need to go in all these folders and you need to download everything. Usually we don't do it like this. So this is how we do it. First of all, let's open a command prompt. So search over here for command prompt. Go to the root of your drive by typing this, and over here create a folder. For example, you can do it like this and call it codes. I already have this folder on my C drive and I'm not going to create it. Consequently, I will just navigate to codes. And this is what you need to do after you create the codes folder. Then, inside of this folder, I'm going to create another folder and I'm going to call that folder as FLUX1 schnell. And we're going to install FLUX1 schnell in this folder. Consequently, let's navigate to this folder. Okay, and as you can see over here, it's completely empty. The first step whenever you want to install something is to create and activate the Python virtual environment. This is a very good practice, since by doing this you will completely decouple your installation and all the necessary packages with the base Python environment. So let's do that. To do that, we simply need to execute this command. This command will create a virtual environment called FLUX1, And the next step is to actually activate that virtual environment, and we can do it like this. Here we will simply execute a file inside of the flux1 folder, inside of the scripts, and the name of the file is activate.bat. And magic happens over here. You can see that our virtual environment is activated. There are two ways to download everything. The first approach is to use the Hugging Face library and to run a simple script. This might be an easier approach. The second approach is to use Git to download everything. The second approach might be more complex. However, the second approach is more suitable for developers, since by downloading the complete repository you will download all the previous versions and you will be able to see what are the changes. We are going to follow the first approach. First of all, we need to install Hugging Face Hub library in our virtual environment in order to download everything. So to do that, we need to run this. Okay. Next, to download the remote repository, we need to create a Python script, and I'm going to use a VS Code editor. Consequently, I will type code dot. However, you can use some other editor if you like. I like VS Code a lot. And over here, I'm going to create a file that will execute this script. So let's do that. File, new file. I will call the script download.py. And here it is. And here is our script. Okay, so what's happening over here? From Hugging Face Hub library, we are importing this function called snapshot download. And this function will actually download a single version of the remote repository. It's not going to download everything. That is, it's going to only download a single version. To use this function, we need to provide the repository ID. So how to do that? You need to go basically to the Hugging Face website. You need to search for FLUX1 schnell, and you simply need to copy this series of characters. This is actually a string. So let's go over here and simply paste it over here. Next, you need to provide the path on the installation folder on your local drive. So let's try to find that path. Here it is. We started VS Code from this file, and over here we need to download everything. So consequently, I will copy this. However, you cannot use this path like this in Python, and you cannot use it in library. You need to make modifications, and here are the modifications. And then what you need to do, you simply need to do this. Okay, and that's it. Now, let's execute this script. But before we execute this script, I have to warn you about the following. First of all, it might take 20 to 30 minutes to download everything. This is because the files over here are huge. For example, you can see that only a single file is around 23 gigabyte, and you also have some other files that are huge in these folders. So make sure that you have 20 to 30 gigabyte of free space, or even 50, above 50 for example, on your local disk. And another thing, reserve some time, so cook a coffee, go somewhere, and return after 20 minutes. So let's run this script, Control-Shift-P, and search for Python, select interpreter, and over here I will run everything in my virtual environment. Consequently, I will select here, then I will run it. And here it is. The running process started. This will take some time. And over here you can actually see the progress. Why I like this library? Well, Hugging Face library, as you can see over here, is downloading everything in parallel, and that significantly saves time. I'm going to continue this video tutorial once the download process is completed. Once the download process is completed, you will see all the files over here, and you will see these huge files, such as this one. So let's open it also from another explorer, and let's look at the files. So here are the files, and you can see how big they are. Here inside, let me find You might also see bigger files, not here. However, one of these folders you can see, for example, these two files that are also huge. And let's look at the complete size of this folder. So it's around 50 gigabyte. Wow, that's huge. Okay, the next step is to install all the necessary libraries. And this is a very crucial step that you need to perform carefully. So what to do and how to do that? First of all, let's go back to our terminal, and let me resize this terminal. Here we are. And first of all, do this. Pip list to make sure that everything is empty. Actually, it's not empty since we already installed Hugging Face. Let's first install setup tools. You need setup tools as a base library to install anything else. Okay, so this will take some time, relatively quickly, and the next step is to install PyTorch. So go to this website, and over here you will see the selection table. We will select stable, we will select Windows as operating system, pip, we are going to select Python, and over here I will select CUDA 11.8. And I will simply copy this command, then I will go to my terminal and I will execute this command, and this command will actually install PyTorch on my local computer. Okay, and this will take some time, since PyTorch itself might be around 3 gigabyte. So be patient. In my case, this will be quick since I already have installed and uninstalled PyTorch several times. However, it's also being cached somewhere in a pip folder, and that's why next time I'm trying to install, I'm actually not completely downloading everything, I'm actually installing it also locally. And this is very important. When I say installing locally, I mean that I'm simply copying from the cache folder and I'm installing in this virtual environment. Next, we need to install these libraries. So let's start with transformers. Then after that, we will need to run, or better to say, to install this library accelerate. So be patient over here, since transformers are actually a big library. Let's install accelerate. We already have actually the Hugging Face Hub library, so we will not need it. Then let's install matplotlib. You will need matplotlib to generate figures. And again, this might take some time. And the next step is to install this important library called diffusers. We are going to use diffusers to simplify the commands for running FLUX1. So install this. This will actually clone the remote repository. You can see it over here. And then, what people do not mention on the official web page is that we will also need to install these two libraries. We will need sentence piece and we will need protobuf. So let's do that. And finally, we will need this library. Okay, that's it. Next, we can run our code. I'm going to simply type code dot to start Visual Studio Code once again, and I'm going to create a new file, new file, and I'm going to call the file as test1.py. And I'm going to save it, and let's write the file. Here it is. Okay, so let's start with the explanation of this file. This file is relatively simple. First of all, we import matplotlib pyplot as plot, since we will plot some images at the end. Then over here, we are importing PyTorch, and then from diffusers, we are importing Flux pipeline. Flux pipeline will actually be used to define the model over here and to define some model parameters. Okay, first of all, we need to load the model parameters. And to do that, we use this function from pre-trained. And over here, you need to specify the folder, or better to say the path of the folder where all the weights are stored. So let's see where the path is. Here is the path, and again, copy this path. In your case, it will probably be different, or try it to be the same. And you need to do this, right? You need to make sure that this is the correct Python path, right? And that's precisely what is written over here. And just to show you, I will simply copy and paste. Here it is. And let me erase this. Then over here I need to specify the data type. We are going to deal with float 16. The trick over here is that you can quantize or apply some kind of truncations and decrease the accuracy, and then you will be able to speed the model, and I will explain this in the next tutorial. And over here there is one crucial line. You have to use this line. Namely, if you use this line over here that the official manual suggests, it's not going to run. And let me show you that this is actually the case. I will first comment this and uncomment this, and I will run, and you will see that everything will be broken over here. So be patient over here, since this will take some time to load the model. And let's see. Loading pipeline. And here, once we start the process of generating the image, I will explain that later, you will get an error that your GPU doesn't have enough memory. And after some time, you will see an error over here. Consequently, comment this line and uncomment this line, and this line will actually offload modules to CPU on a submodule level. And this is very important. Okay, I'm going to run the code later on once I explain everything. Over here is our prompt. Here you can define your sentence. For example, let's start with something else. Let's, for example, write mouse and a cat. Let's just write it correctly. A mouse and a cat are playing together on a beach. They, or let's say next to them, there is a woman and a man. Okay, the man has blonde hair, the woman has black hair. Okay, so let's generate this. Once you define the prompt, you need to define the pipe. In the pipe, you need to specify the text prompt. You need to specify this parameter guidance scale that I will explain in the next tutorial. You need to specify the output type. The output type will be the so-called pillow, or pill as an abbreviation. This is actually a library and an object that is an image object. Here we will have number of inference steps 4. Again, some parameter that I will explain in the sequel. Over here we have max sequence length. Again, the parameter. And over here we run this generator. We call torch.generator CPU, and we specify manual seed 0. This means that we will make sure that everything is reproducible. That is, every time we run the code, we will get the same image. However, if you put a seed, for example, 1, 2, or 3, you will always get some random image. And we don't want to do that for the time being. And over here, you can also play with this option. Instead of running CPU, you can run CUDA, and CUDA will run your GPU in this segment. However, I think behind the scene, in both cases, CUDA will be exploited. That is, you're going to run GPU. More about this in the next tutorial. And the output will actually be a series of images, and we are going to select only the first image over here. Let me do this, right? And then what we'll do over here, we will show the image by using plot. Then we will simply save the image in our original folder, and I'm going to call the image as generated image. That's it. So let's run this code. And let's see what's happening over here. Now, over here we can see the memory consumption, and we can also see what's happening behind the scenes. Now, you can see the CPU usage and you can see the memory consumption. And this is my RAM memory, and it's being continuously populated. And over here you can see the progress. And let's wait a little bit. You see that memory is almost at the maxed value. and you can see the progress. It's quite fast when you have more gigabyte of RAM memory. And let's see what will be the output. Currently it's 22 seconds. Let's see further. We're almost done. And let's see, here it is. Wow, looks nice. We have a cat and a mouse. However, for some reason this code didn't show a man and a woman, and we can fix that later. Okay, thank you all for watching and have a nice day.